Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta is weighing in on the crisis in Iraq in a new tell-all book called Worthy Fights, set to hit the shelves next week. Panetta slams the president for ignoring his advice to leave some U.S. ground forces in Iraq. He claims that it would have helped stave off terrorist influences. Panetta writes, quote, "My fear, as I voiced to the president and others, was that if the country split apart or slid back into the violence that we'd seen in the years immediately following the U.S. invasion, it could become a new haven for terrorists to plot attacks against the U.S.-Iraq stability against the United States. Iraq's stability was not only in Iraq's interest, but also in ours." Panetta says his views were shared by other military commanders, but those concerns were ignored. So let's talk about this with CNN political analyst and senior national security correspondent for the Daily Beast, Josh Rogin. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and I apologize for reading that quote so poorly, but when all is said and done, Panetta is not very complimentary of Mr. Obama's defense strategy, and that kind of surprises me.
Right. Throughout the book, a copy of which I obtained, Panetta describes a White House that's insular, controlling, doesn't often listen to its top cabinet officials, and sometimes puts politics over policy. And the Iraq example is a great one because the White House, even to this day, will tell you that they couldn't leave troops in Iraq because the Iraqis couldn't come to an agreement, because the Iraqis didn't want it, because the Bush administration had made an agreement to pull U.S. troops out of Iraq. But what Panetta is saying very clearly is that he wanted and advocated and pushed for a deal to keep troops in Iraq. He thought it was necessary. Other top national security officials have said the same thing, but the White House just wanted to get rid of the Iraq problem. They viewed it as something that Bush had created. They did not want to leave troops there, and they created a situation whereby a deal would have been impossible. That's been reported. That's often what a lot of people say. But for the defense secretary under Obama to say that so clearly is a direct rebuke to the White House's messaging. And considering the chaos that's going on in Iraq right now, he seems to have a point.
Well, you know, that's why I was surprised, because there's a war going on right now, and do you really want all these critics coming out of the, you mean Democratic critics coming out of the woodwork to criticize your policy at a time when you kind of need to, like, you know, all be on the same page, even if you're not?
It's always the problem when one of these top officials writes a book, because everybody writes a memoir, and there is praise for Obama in the book. I read the whole thing. He says Obama fixed the economy largely. He said he put the military largely on the right footing. He's very critical of the president's actions in Syria. He says it was marked by hesitation and half steps. He criticizes Obama for going back on his promise to draw a red line against Bashar al-Assad. After Assad used chemical weapons, the president decided to strike Syria and then reversed himself. And Leon Panetta says that cost America credibility and hurt the Americans' power around the world, and that's also a pretty strong statement. His criticism.
And the bottom line that I got from reading your article about this book is that the White House really didn't listen to the experts it had on staff. It was a very small group who made these decisions, and that group was in the White House.
Right, and this is also what we've heard from people close to Hillary Clinton, which is that the White House policy was controlled by a very few number of people, senior advisors like Tom Donilon, Dennis McDonough, Susan Rice, John Brennan, National Security Advisor for Communications Ben Rhodes, and top officials, secretary-level officials, cabinet-level officials were often put aside. That's a change from previous administrations, and that shows you why, in some views, that politics were put above policy, because the White House was often looking for its own interests as well as the interests of the national security bureaucracy, and those two things aren't often the same. And when the White House had a battle with the Pentagon or the State Department, the White House would always win. And this is why former officials are coming out now to say that maybe the wrong decisions were made.
All right, and you can read more of Josh's article on the Daily Beast. Josh Rogin, thanks for being with me. I appreciate it. I'll be right back.
Thank you.